We're going to be continuing to assess the fallout from the 2023 NFL draft because that's really all there is to do right now. Not a whole lot going on. We're going to talk about some of our old favorites. Kadarius Toney getting talked up by the Chiefs yet again. Sam Howell getting talked up by Commanders media and front office yet again. The Cowboys saying weird stuff about like backup third down backs yet again. Deuce Vaughn, rookie Deuce Vaughn, one of the more fun prospects in the draft out of Kansas State, who we did talk about on the show glowingly, and is a really interesting prospect, but I have no idea kind of how he'll fit in at the NFL level. We're going to talk about that. Zay Flowers saying he fits the Ravens offense. Then we got a little quarterback news to start with all the time. You don't even know which quarterback I'm going to mention to you because there are two choices.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
But we have to lead. We're also going to talk about Denny's recent article on unexpected fantasy points. Some like couch cushion fantasy points he didn't know existed last year that maybe we can find in 2023. But we do have to lead with the stunning breaking news from last week that the New York Jets are signing Randall Cobb.
Oh, you went with that one. All right.
That the New York Jets are signing Randall Cobb. And you called this a masterpiece of gaslighting from Aaron Rodgers. Can you take the folks through why you think that is and why I agree? I retweeted it.
I'm impressed. You know, it really is like if you want to learn, if you're a young man who wants to learn how to gaslight people, you need look no further than Aaron Rodgers, because this guy is a genius, is a savant when it comes to gaslighting. So he comes out after an ESPN report says, hey, Aaron Rodgers gave a wish list to Robert Saleh and the Jets organization saying, here are the players who I need on the team before I sign. And it included Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb and Mercedes Lewis and Jordy Nelson. I'm kidding, but
BJ Raji.
Yeah. And all, you know, the whole gang. Okay. The whole mediocre gang he wants back together with the Jets. And he says, no. That's false. This is fake news. This is an attack by the press on me, an innocent person. And he later says, no. You don't understand, media. It was not a wish list. It was a list of wishes. This is totally different.
Bill Clinton, you know, like nodding, and like he has like never had like a sleight of hand with words like that.
I mean, Bill Clinton did that Antonio Banderas meme where he looked at the computer and he went, "Oh."
Aaron Rodgers has been telling Jets fans what the definition of is,
and then so what happens? Oh, they get all of the mid receivers that you know Rodgers wanted, according to this report from ESPN from like three months ago. So that was all correct. But he gaslighted everyone like he always does and says, no, you were totally wrong. It was this, not that. And it ends up being this, the original thing.
It is funny that for being a football player who has not spent his professional career like honing his verbal skills, his sleight of hand, like with the verbiage, is basically second to none. And
also, yeah, when he said I'm inoculated against COVID-19.
Yes,
right.
Politicians seriously wish they had his like verbal sleight of hand abilities. And it's also interesting with the wish list, by the way, we listed a bunch of, we would say maybe mediocre ex-Packers. It somehow had Mecole Hardman on it. And they ended up with Mecole Hardman. What is his like master plan for this receiver core? And it's very scary when, you know, they have a dynamic, super dynamic young talent, reigning offensive rookie of the year in Garrett Wilson. And Aaron Rodgers just keeps telegraphing he wants to throw to other people.
Yes, that's exactly what he keeps doing, and no one will listen. No, Jets fans won't listen. Fantasy folks won't listen. Everybody, no. Garrett Wilson's good, and he is good. Like I've written about how good Garrett Wilson was with the worst quarterbacking in recent history last year. Okay, that's not a question. But the fact that Allen Lazard has to be on the team. And Randall Cobb has to be on the team. And this is my favorite talking point. I'm going 15 different directions right now, but it's been on my mind, as you can tell. Jets fans have a talking point, okay? Because they get their talking points distributed every morning by the Jets organization. They get it in their email. And the talking point is this: Randall Cobb is the wide receiver 5. Why are you worked up over the wide receiver 5?
That is always what it is. I thought they were going to go with coach on the field.
No. I have news for you, Jets fans. He's not the wide receiver 5. He's the wide receiver 2 behind Allen
All
Lazard.
right. I mean, come on.
Okay.
I will say
it's
to offer hope to Jets fans and fantasy managers, Aaron Rodgers not only gaslights fans, he also does gaslight his teammates, where he comes out and basically acts like Allen Lazard is like, the godfather to all my children. Like, we're actually looking into if we're literal brothers. And then when the game starts, he's like, all right, I'm throwing 19 times a game to Devontae Adams. And I think that also, like a politician, his actions may not match his words, and that he's going to be throwing to Garrett Wilson 19 times a game.
I think where we're going with this conversation is that we want to congratulate the future senator from Wisconsin, Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, or California. Who knows? Realignments are always taking place. Maybe he can run on a. I was about to say. I was about to get too political. A certain kind of platform in California.
It is. It's a hard line to tell.
I was going to mention a public figure who, let's just call him Junior. He has the suffix Junior at the end of his name. Aaron Rodgers is a big fan of him. But yeah, we'll just see what happens. I think it's off to a poor start, is all I can say, is Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. And when he looked very sullen under the gray sky get to work practice photos they tweeted last week, where it's like, this really happened, huh? Seemed like it was really fun mind game to play, but now it's like I got to play actual games. And just a good idea at the time.
That's true. It actually, he did have that face on, like, oh, so I have to go out there, huh?
I know it does seem like at this stage of his career, he enjoys the mind game.
So this is not Green Bay. Is that what you're telling me? Yeah. So just so people know, like, gaslighting is designed to make you feel crazy. And when you were correct the whole time, okay?
Yeah.
So that's I don't know if everybody's familiar with that term, but like, because you're no, it was a wish list. It was a wish. No, it wasn't. You were wrong. It was a list of wishes.
Yes,
and then you go, oh, I must be crazy.
People who tweet 69 times an hour like you do, Denny, they know what gaslighting is because they're online. Some of our less online may not have known a word that has gone quite viral. In recent years. And Denny, who's going to go viral in 2023? First round Ravens wide receiver Zay Flowers. He said the offense fits my style perfectly. When asked how he could contribute as a rookie in 2023, looking like a slot only guy coming out of Boston College, but as listeners of the show know, as draft aficionados know, he was someone who commanded targets in a really, really bad Boston College offense. Like, kind of had special traits shining through, even if the stats were really good, but they weren't elite. Like, for some people, like if you were just looking at like his sports reference page, you might not be entirely clear on how Zay Flowers was first round pick, but he tested very well. Like, everything kind of like looks set up for success, especially with the Ravens switching their offensive approach under new offensive coordinator Todd Monken. I always want to say Monken, but Connor Rogers set us straight. It's Monken.
Yeah.
So Zay's going to get a lot of hype all summer. He's going to be one of those ADP guys. We love rookies. We look for any reason to like cling to the new thing. Whereas like Rashad Bateman used to be that guy, but he's burned fantasy managers now really badly each of his first 2 NFL seasons. But really good chance he could still just end up being the Ravens receiver to roster. How do you prioritize between Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman heading into 2023?
I mean, the Ravens offense would need to change pretty drastically for Flowers to have like a fantasy viable weekly role for 12 team purposes. Okay. Like, if we're going to whittle it down, and I don't want not in my league Twitter to come knocking down our doors.
Oh, we are.
Well, in my 16 team league,
I'm in a 14 team league that's AFC only, and that's curious.
And so Zay Flowers is your wide receiver 1.
Yes, exactly. Continue though.
Yeah, I mean, he was somewhat of a polarizing prospect coming out of college because he stayed a 4th year, which is not the greatest thing. His dominator rating, like, his air yards and target share domination was almost off the charts. But again, like you said, really bad offenses. So it's hard to know how much stock to put into that. There's also the issue of the competition he faced versus other prospects. So it's like, I don't know. I think that we should have a little more skepticism about Zay Flowers than we do currently. I also think that the target domination of Mark Andrews kind of chops the upside off of everybody in this offense, unless again Lamar Jackson's suddenly going to throw the ball 500 times.
It's interesting to hear Denny truthing the ACC. I know Maryland has left the ACC, but you're talking about it basically like it was a group of 5 conference, Denny.
I mean, it's not the SEC.
It's not the SEC, but he did play. He played in a good conference. I'm more than satisfied with 33% of Zay Flowers' career production coming against Syracuse. I don't know about you. No, I mean, that's a fake stat, by the way.
Sounds real.
Yeah, it does. You hit on just a really important point, and this all hinges on the Ravens actually following through on their offense. They're changing offensive philosophy. It all hinges on basically everything that was wrong with the Ravens' passing attack being Greg Roman's fault and not Lamar Jackson's fault. And I'm sure a lot of it was the offensive approach. I mean, there's just the proof was in the pudding with the run rate, but still, like we've like accepted as an article of faith. They're like, all right, the play caller's gone. Like Lamar Jackson's now going to throw 35 times a game. Like
he's
checkmate. Not. And yeah, I know. So he's just not, is he?
No. I mean, that's not the way it works with guys who can run for first downs instead of checking it down for a 5-yard gain. That's something Lamar Jackson will never do, has never done, and honestly should never do. Same with Jalen Hurts. Like, why dump it off to Kenny Gainwell when Jalen Hurts can easily run for 7 yards and get out of bounds and not take a hit? Like that's efficient football. That's why the Eagles had the highest EPA per rush last year, and it wasn't close because of Jalen Hurts, not because of Miles Sanders or any of the other inefficient rushers. So getting back to the Baltimore offense, yeah, I think that there's a chance that this summer that we, as fantasy analysts, overblow this shift in offensive philosophy for Baltimore, where suddenly we're talking about them like the Matthew Stafford Lions dropping back 700.
Or just like the Jameis Winston Bucks under Todd Monken, who did throw like 45 times a game. But
and Jameis Winston, one of the least mobile quarterbacks.
Exactly. It's just a totally different situation. Looks like fantasy managers so far definitely hedging their bets. The first week of ADP, an underdog from May 1st to May 8th. Zay Flowers is the 93rd overall player. Rashad Bateman's the 105th.
Really?
Overall player. Yeah. So it is interesting. Early sharp drafters, the people who are drafting even before the schedule comes out, Denny, which we know is just an absolute scandal.
Come on.
You don't draft before the schedule comes out. Have Zay ahead, but by 12 spots, and they have neither one of them like premium ADP position. One's not even cracking the top 100. It definitely seems like a situation where everyone is kind of like waiting for more information. And it's going to also be a situation where like one camp report, I feel like, can dramatically say if Jameson Hensley posts during like mandatory mini camp or just even in OTAs this month, Ravens are like look like a whole new offense, throwing every play, like little stuff like that is going to have a big effect on these ADPs. I feel like
I would take take Bateman straight up over Zay Flowers.
I was actually going to ask you were you still a Bateman believer?
Yeah, and last summer I was mostly out on Bateman because in a Greg Roman offense, I'm sorry, but you're not going to have 2 fantasy viable pass catchers. You're just not. Like maybe in this new offense, maybe yes, they will. But if you look at the small sample from Rashad Bateman last season, it really wasn't that bad. I know that's not a ringing endorsement, but
tell me more.
He wasn't that. Listen, I'm here to tell you about players who were not that bad. And Rashad Bateman is one of them. He ran 116 routes. He was targeted on 24% of those routes, which is not unbelievable. It's not Kadarius Toney like, but it's also not bad. It's not bad. 24%, especially when you have a target hog like Mark Andrews in the offense. That's okay. He was, I believe, top 10 in yards per route run. So, he's good. He's good. And I think that he's the wide receiver 1. I mean, now Andrews is obviously the top guy, but I think that he should be treated as the wide receiver 1 over Flowers.
He was top 10 in yards per route run because his role, they were just having such an identity crisis. He had 15 catches last year, but he had 285 yards and like 15 catches. It was basically running as like Deshaun Jackson and was probably averaging almost 20 yards per catch. Like just a total identity crisis in that offense.
Yeah.
And the year before, he was being more used as like a compiler. And there was a lot. that Ravens offense went off the rails last year.
And Bateman showed when healthy, he's really good after the catch. There are a couple nerdy metrics I won't bore you guys, but said that he was the best in the league in doing stuff after the catch, like being very productive after the catch. I don't think that he's going to lose that coming into his second season. I know it feels like he's been in the league for 10 years.
Third. It actually is his third season.
I'm sorry. We're looking into it. It is his third.
He just absolutely rocked the doing stuff after the catch metric.
Yes.
Who else rocks that metric, Denny? Someone that we really like. We actually need like NBC management to sit us down. Like, listen, no one's getting fired. Like, this isn't your fault. But we have to stop talking about Kadarius Toney on the Rotoworld football show. It's not allowed anymore.
Yeah.
And we know that it's not your guys' fault, but it will be your fault from now on if you continue to do it. We just cannot talk about Kadarius Toney anymore. But Denny, what are we supposed to do when Chiefs GM Brett Veach says, I don't know if there's a limit on Kadarius Toney's game because he has a vertical game and just greasing the skids, basically sounding the ADP siren, like go get Kadarius Toney. The hamstrings have been glued and soldered back together, and it's all systems go for Kadarius Toney. Listen, what do we even do with this kind of how in the world do we manage a problem like Kadarius Toney right now?
So Brett, what this comes down to really is Brett Veach is trying to get us into trouble with NBC higher ups.
Yes,
how can we not talk about this?
It's insane.
Kadarius Toney is a metrics god on earth. He is like, he pops in all of them after the catch, before the catch, yards per route run, targets per route run. He 27% target per route run last year. That was 13th in the league last year. Hold on, I have it here. Third. I'm sorry. No, wait a second. He was third in target per route run in 2021 with the Giants. Last year, he was fourth in yards per route run. I mean, it's just sickening that this guy can't get more targets. And look, I'm not saying Kadarius Toney's the kind of playmaker and the kind of producer who doesn't need 160 targets to get there. Like, can we get 110 targets for Kadarius Toney? Like that would be pretty great if he can continue to produce the way he has the past couple seasons. I don't really know what exactly to do here. I haven't given up. But, the fact that they drafted Rashee Rice, that they apparently are talking about Sky Moore like he's a thing, I feel like you have to be a little bit skeptical. But man, Kadarius Toney is just incredibly tempting here.
He's currently the wide receiver 38 on Underdog. I see no way that's not eventually steamed into the top 36, aka wide receiver 3, and quite possibly steamed into the top 30. And it's because really, what is the case against him? Basically, comes down to he's been hurt for 2 years, so obviously he'll be hurt for a third. We know that doesn't usually work out that way, especially when it's like these weird little muscle injuries, and it's not like he's suffered any structural damage. But man, it's also maybe he's one of the rare guys who is injury prone, and maybe he just puts too much stress on his muscles and joints with the way he cuts, which is unlike any other player in the NFL, basically, with the stop-start ability. He's like LaShawn McCoy, basically, the way he jump cuts and his stop-start ability. And maybe it's just too much pressure. But, when you look, if you could turn off injuries, we just know, he'd be a top 20 receiver. He'd probably be a top 18, maybe a top 12. And in a game where everyone's basically injury-prone because you're always one hit away from getting injured, you probably just need to be prepared to get hurt again. I am prepared to get hurt again. I will be drafting Kadarius Toney. We'll say that.
I know. I honestly used to like watching Kadarius Toney play, and I don't really like doing that anymore because every time he makes a cut, he's hurt. And so I would ask Kadarius. I know he's a big fan of the show. Maybe don't do that. Maybe don't stick your leg in the ground at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, you could see how it would create injuries. And
it's cool.
Body might not be able to plant and go like that.
It's very cool to watch occasionally, but when you've seen the same thing over and over and over again, it gets a little bit old. So maybe discover another way to run, and then you'll be good.
Do you have anything to say about second rounder Rashee Rice, kind of their do-over on the Sky Moore pick? Maybe it's not a do-over. They needed receiver depth badly, especially with Juju Smith-Schuster departing in free agency. So Rashee Rice, his arrival doesn't necessarily spell the end for Sky Moore. But have you developed an opinion on Rashee Rice yet, or just not really?
Well, I mean, there are several metrics about his production in college that speak to a guy who could make an immediate impact. But again, I mean, he went where he went in the draft because there were question marks about can he translate his college production to the pro level. As a hyped rookie in the Kansas City offense, catching passes from Patrick Mahomes, he's probably going to get steamed, as the Zoomers say, past an ADP where I'm comfortable taking him. And I would tend in this offense, which distributes the ball almost at random sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
Outside of Kelsey, of course. You just take the lowest ADP guy. Maybe that's the move.
We have seen too. They have the luxury of not forcing the issue. Although they did force the issue with Sky Moore on returns for some reason, and that nearly blew up their season several times.
Yes.
Hopefully he's got that figured out. But Rashee Rice, it's I can't think of a more textbook boom bust risk reward, because so much upside to his playing style, so much upside in this offense, so many targets available in this offense, but also just a team with Patrick Mahomes that doesn't need to force the issue, because he's going to complete the ball to whoever is technically sound at any given moment. And Rashee Rice, coming in the league as a rookie, just may not be that guy, and he really may be Sky Moore 2.0 as a rookie. So a lot of genuine ceiling. You can't ignore the ceiling, but it's the same thing where you can't ignore the downside. So yeah, we're gonna move on from Kadarius Toney until next week. But I thought it was interesting. The Rams GM Les Snead was talking up 6th round running back Zach Evans, who I think some people in the draft community liked. Already, they're all all the prospects blurring together to me now. I'm trying to remember things about Zach Evans, but I know his name came up a few times. We had an interesting career at TCU and Ole Miss. Fell to the 6th round of the Rams. They're talking him up. I'm not asking you about Zach Evans because I expect Zach Evans to really be a rookie factor. But I'm just wondering, so they're talking up a rookie running back. How do we feel about Cam Akers, who was left for dead in fantasy, left for dead by the Rams, basically. They were trying to work out a trade for him, and it didn't happen. Yeah. And then just kind of against all odds, he re-seized lead back duties pretty convincingly down the stretch in December. And are we maybe nearing a this time it counts with Cam Akers, who's going to be 2 years removed from his torn Achilles tendon this summer, and maybe he's entering the Deontay Foreman zone where he's finally healthy? Or are you just avoiding the Rams backfield? Or like you said with the Chiefs receivers, is the Rams backfield is the classic take the cheapest running back?
I don't know. I think Akers with enough hype around Evans and enough skepticism about Cam Akers' health and his production. I mean, remember him coming back from this Achilles earlier than anyone expected.
Way. Some would say far too early.
Many I've seen many say that it was 2 to 5 months too early. And I'm not joking about it, because it's a serious thing. It's this guy's career, and you would like to see him perform at his potential when he gets back on the field. And obviously he was not able to do that until late last year. And if you look at the opportunity and production over the final month of the season,
it was pretty.
You have Cam Akers 5th in rushing attempts, 2nd behind only Tyler Algier in rushing yards.
May God rest his soul.
Yes. Although I will have him on every team, obviously.
Oh my gosh.
You never know. This is what I'm saying. Cam Akers, this is a boomer stat, I understand, but yards yards per carry is 5.5 over that stretch. So what I'm saying is it's not and there are some other metrics to point to. The Rams were not just stuffing it into Cam Akers' belly and saying, "We give us 3 yards in a cloud of dust." Cam, he was actually productive and borderline impressive through much of that last month of the regular season. If that can carry over into this season, I could see Cam Akers being a pretty huge value. Now, the way that fantasy analysis goes and the savviness of today's fantasy manager, typical fantasy manager, I don't know if you're going to get away with much ADP wise with a guy like him.
That's a really good point. And just to add a little more context, over 100 yards rushing in each of his final 3 games, averaging 5.47 yards per carry over his final 4 games. The final month, he hit 5 yards per carry in each of those 4 games. So it wasn't like one game he averaged like 8.2 yards per carry, another 3.1, which again is a boomer stat. But all this was happening against the backdrop of having no passing attack. The Rams' offense was super predictable with Baker Mayfield and no passing game weapons. And he just seemed like it really did seem like some of that explosion behind a horrible offensive line. But he did face the Chargers and he faced the Seahawks, 2 really bad defenses. But it just seemed like kind of some of his physical ability, which was really prodigious before the injury was coming back. And the human body does eventually heal. Although my physical therapist has told me the Achilles doesn't really it's forever shorter after you rupture it. But Deontay Foreman got better. Maybe Cam Akers is just getting better. And a guy who before he got hurt, they talked about as a 3-down player.
Right. I mean, I know folks have short memories, including myself, but
memories of ants.
We were very much looking forward to 3-down Cam Akers. I mean, he seemed like the kind of guy who could deliver with that kind of workload. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it just takes longer. I mean, I remember Jamal Charles after one of his catastrophic injuries, took a little bit longer than we wanted for him to come back. And when he was all the way back, he was very good. He was back to his old self. Sometimes it just takes time. Now, if Cam Akers is like a dead zone running back, this is something that we call the 3rd to 6th round. I'm into it.
You're in, even in the 3rd, you're in. Probably not. I don't think knowing you personally. Yeah, I don't think you would ever take Cam Akers in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if I was under threat of death. Perhaps.
He's going ahead. He's going 1 spot behind Isaiah Pacheco, 1 spot ahead of Rachaad White. He's in like the David Montgomery, Javonte Williams zone, the James Conner zone. And I do feel like it's a situation where he has a considerable amount more upside than a lot of those options.
Yeah. Name some of those players again.
He's 1 spot ahead of Rachaad White. He's 2 spots ahead of James Conner, 3 ahead of David Montgomery, Javonte Williams, James Cook. So like he is in the dead zone. He's in the question mark zone.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is like, do we believe in his upside he's the RB24 right now? Exactly. So he's the lowest end RB2. And to really get a return on that ADP investment as the RB24, you need him to be like the RB18 to 20. I feel like for that to be like truly worth it. But he was that down the stretch. So
I would take him right now over Rachaad White and James Cook.
Would you take him over David Montgomery?
That's where it kind of gets iffy for me. I'd probably lean Montgomery there.
Would you take him over James Conner? What a weird one that is.
No.
You take James Conner over him? Wow.
I mean, is James Conner's just gonna have a big role again? You know?
Would you take him over Isaiah Pacheco?
Yes.
I actually would not. If you were drafting today, final one, would you take Cam Akers or Joe Mixon?
Oh man, that's tough. Because the Bengals
Cam Akers for sure.
Bengals don't even know who Joe Mixon is right now.
It's to the point with Joe Mixon where I think even if he stays on the team, they're basically signaling like P. Ryan season or Chase Brown season.
Chase Brown.
Yeah.
That's the one.
They seem over it, as they probably should be.
Yeah, I think so.
For a variety of reasons. We are over this segment because we're going to take a quick break and be right back after this. Every season is draft season. Get your Rotoworld draft guide bundle today and dominate your football, baseball, and basketball drafts. It's packed with profiles, rankings, and projections. Order today and get all 3 Rotoworld draft guides for the price of 2. Plus, use promo code BARRY and save an extra 20% off at checkout. That's promo code BERRY to save an extra 20% off at checkout. And don't forget, download the Rotoworld app to see breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players in your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It is available in your app store today. Then I had to go into like promo voice there, and it was hard to pull off with my 69th cold of the fall, or the spring. Excuse me.
We gotta respect Pat for getting sick and staying sick.
Well, I mentioned this because I actually think your voice is sounding a little weaker than mine today. You got some allergies too? What's going on?
You know what it is, and this is not a humble brag. When I run, the breathing, it messes up my throat. It just does. I don't know.
It takes your breathing 3 hours to go back to normal after you do a run.
No, I don't mean like I'm like gassed. I just mean like the actual like breathing in and out hard because I'm out of shape. It just ruins. Like, I do sound weird. I'm actually like projecting more than usual because I'm afraid that my voice is going to give out.
I didn't mean to highlight that. I'm sorry.
I'm not looking. I'm not.
I thought you were getting. I thought maybe you were getting allergies or a cold or something.
No, I'm not weak.
Yeah, exactly. I know. That's what I've been pointing to my immune system in the mirror. Yeah, my immune system, I think, finally is back to being robust, where I'm getting my kids colds, and they're just now normal colds again, instead of whatever the hell kept just knocking me out.
Yeah, that was quite something.
And spring. It's also 90 degrees in St. Louis now. I think cold season's over.
It's 90?
Yeah, it was 90. It was 93 degrees yesterday in St. Louis, Missouri.
That is shocking to someone who lives in Maryland, where it has not cracked 70 degrees for a month.
Which is interesting because usually we have the exact same climate, kind of, as that DC Virginia triangle. Yeah. But yeah, it's hell on earth. I can barely wear pants again. I try to be I've tried to become a responsible adult where I only wear shorts when it's just truly too hot. Right. In St. Louis, it's truly too hot, like pretty much the entire summer.
So you're wearing shorts right now?
No, I am wearing pants, and I'll be honest, I'm a little hot.
Dude, I mean, it's May. There's no shorts allowed.
It's true.
What is this, Hawaii?
I'm going to be wearing pants to pick up my daughter later. I'll be like the only adult who's still trying to, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't wear shorts, and I'm just ostracized.
I'm going to pick up my kids later and wear dress pants.
There you go. I think we might get some feedback from some of our loyal listeners who I know do not share our opinion.
Oh, they're going to be beside themselves.
I'm saying some of like the loyal, like the Denny reply guys who normally are on Team Denny will be savaging you for this.
I know they're gonna destroy, because they're all about shorts all day, every day. I wear shorts in the house. I wear shorts to grocery store when it's 35 degrees outside. I don't know what that is. Well, I don't know what that's about. There's no reason to do that.
Power.
People wear shorts on a plane.
Power over nature. Power over your.
Don't wear shorts on a plane.
I actually, not to get elitist, I wouldn't be caught dead wearing shorts on the plane.
Wear pants. This is my effort to make you look like an adult.
You need to, when you get off the plane, like, and say, where you get onto the gangway or whatever, and it's not like totally sealed, and the humidity has hit you like the wettest blanket you've ever felt in your life. You have to be wearing pants.
You got to tough it out, folks.
That's what adults do.
Sometimes you just have to be uncomfortable.
You got to tough out the latest Cowboys luxury pick, although actually it was a day 3 pick, not really a luxury pick. And they took someone we talked about several times in the pre-draft buildup, Deuce Vaughn out of Kansas State, who's only 5'7", but like Darren Sproles before him at K-State, so productive, so shifty, production that belied his small frame. He's ended up in a place that has some touches for the taking. Tony Pollard had like the off season from heaven. Basically, I said, I'm having the summer from hell. Tony Pollard, he survived the loss of Ezekiel Elliott with only Ronald Jones. Yeah, it was Rico Dowdle, I think, was already on the roster. Malik Davis was a little interesting down the stretch. There are touches for the taking. And I guess the problem with Deuce Vaughn so the Cowboys have called him a weapon, was the whole point of this question.
Yes.
It's not really a question. They called him a weapon. But is he fighting for the same touches as Tony Pollard? And is he like not the kind of change of pace back the Cowboys need? Or can there be room in this now Kellen Moore-less offense, aka far less creative, for there to be kind of a change of pace behind the change of pace? Tony Pollard, who's going to function as like an Austin Eckler type lead back. Maybe he handles a few more carries than Austin Eckler, actually. But where do the touches come from for Deuce Vaughn, if anywhere, in this offense?
I think that there is a path to some volume here, and obviously to upside should Tony Pollard miss any time. I'm crossing myself right now. Sorry to get religious, but yeah, I mean, Deuce Vaughn in an offense guided and coached and crafted by Mike McCarthy, who has recently said that he doesn't want to score too many points. I think that there is a path to rushing volume. Like if he's going to stick by his guns and say, hey, look, like we want to bleed the clock. We want to run it. We want to establish it. We only want to pass when absolutely necessary with our $600 million quarterback and our franchise receiver. Then yeah, I mean, I think that Deuce Vaughn could possibly see, 10 touches a game somewhere in there if the game script is right. I could see him being very game script dependent, I guess is what I'm saying. But I think he's a very interesting pick, especially if you're fading early round running backs.
Speaking of like early round running backs, and Tony Pollard is going to be one. He was last year. Even with Ezekiel Elliott there, Tony Pollard reached 193 carries, which is actually smack dab in the middle of the Eckler zone. Eckler was 204 last year.
Yeah.
How much room for growth do we think there is for Tony? I mean, they're not going to make Tony Pollard like a 250 carry player, are they?
No.
And like, I feel like if they keep Tony Pollard around 200, I mean, someone's getting carries. Malik Davis, Ronald Jones. I mean, hopefully Deuce Vaughn is one of them, but I could also see like a very unsatisfying, like door number 3 option is for some reason getting 90 carries for the Cowboys this year. And it's a really, really weird situation.
I mean, yeah, I mean, just for skeptics, and I count myself as one for, a running back who's 5'7". I mean, that's just incredibly small. But Deuce Vaughn was 9th in the nation last year in rushing attempts with 244 at Kansas State. So, I mean, he can seemingly handle a workload, at least in college. He had 1,300 yards, which was among the most in the nation. So I do think that he's a guy who can eat into Tony Pollard's early down role, whatever that is. And honestly, the Cowboys, I know that they had some turnover with Kellen Moore leaving and Mike McCarthy taking over, but philosophically, that team, that franchise, has never seen Tony Pollard as an every down back, and I don't think that changes. I'm not trying to say you can't draft Tony Pollard because he's explosive, he's efficient, he does a lot with a little. That's going to continue, but I do think that we need to ratchet back a little bit on thinking that, okay, Zeke's gone, so Tony Pollard is going to see 25 carries a game. There is no universe where that's happening.
No, and the Cowboys, though, I was just thinking like galaxy brain takes at the Cowboys, who last year they were 6th in the league with 531 carries. And like so much of that went out the door with Ezekiel Elliott. And like all the signaling, all the telegraphing is more rush attempts. But I almost wonder, like, even as they're like ever more heavily philosophically going in on the run, if the attempts end up coming way down just because they're going to be so much more efficient without Ezekiel Elliott. But I just don't know who like that second true option is going to be. I don't know for sure if it's going to be Deuce Vaughn. I guess he might be the favorite, but I could just easily see like Malik Davis or Ronald Jones. But I think kind of no matter what happens, my take is going to be they're going to have less raw rushing, even though they're more philosophically built on the run, just because they're going to be so much more fit. And like, I know people get tired of us piling on Ezekiel Elliott, but he was that inefficient. Yeah, they're just going to be. It is addition by subtraction in the efficiency department with Zeke gone.
He was at the bottom of every metric in measuring, what running backs did with their carries, basically. And yeah, so I do think that's right. I don't think Ronald Jones will be on the roster come week 1. So I think we can kind of cross that one off. Malik Davis, though, hey, I believe I tweeted several times last year that Malik Davis looked like the team's best running back for a while.
Oh my gosh!
So,
you would tweet.
I'm holding that candle.
We have a Sam Howell thing here. Should we talk about this? Or should we just skip Sam Howell?
Well, we want to just emphasize that Sam Howell will not be the starter this year.
Well, have we? I don't know if I want to emphasize that.
I'd like to emphasize.
All right, I'm gonna fine. We'll get into it. ESPN's John Keim reports that second-year quarterback Sam Howell has shown enough to convince the Commanders that he is their starter, Denny Carter. I think he is going to be the starter. I'll just be honest. I do think he's going to be the starter. I didn't even get to the part 2 of the question, but I'll let you answer part 1 first.
Sam Howell will start the season. Will begin the season as starter, obviously. He will be quickly yanked by Ron Rivera because Ron Rivera does not do the struggling young quarterback thing and always wants to go with the middling veteran. And honestly, in this case, Jacoby Brissett is not so middling, and we'll talk about that in a minute. He's pretty good, and I think that Brissett is a superior option to Howell. Now, if Washington wants to tank for a good draft spot, then I guess you go with Howell. But Ron Rivera is coaching for his job, so I think that he's going to go with Brissett.
I just had a realization that Ron Rivera is going to be fired midseason.
I mean, that seems likely.
Just for beyond the obvious reasons, new ownership. And this era is clearly going nowhere. Like pretty much, I think most of the fan base will just assume Ron Rivera will not be back in 2024. And I don't know what this means with regards to this question, but I do think Ron Rivera will probably just be fired midseason. But Sam Howell, my question was, so say he actually wins the starting job convincingly and becomes the real deal starter. We've had no issue whatsoever basically putting Anthony Richardson in the second or third tier at quarterback. It's already just talk about articles of faith. We're just Anthony Richardson is one of the fantasy quarterbacks to own in 2023. Sam Howell had almost 1,000 yards rushing his final year in college. How high do we have to get Sam Howell in these rankings, Denny Carter? Because we know that dual threat, you may not like it, but it's what peak fantasy quarterback performance looks like.
You're right. I do not like it. Look, Sam Howell in his lone start last year was actually quite bad. I know.
This does tend to get memory hold for some reason.
I know Washington beat up on Dallas, and that was fun for Washington fans and everything. But Sam Howell was borderline atrocious in that game. 28th in completion rate over expected, just for one stat. There are several that point to him being not so good through the air. I guess there's some rushing appeal. You talked about his rushing production at North Carolina. So that could definitely change the calculus. But I and I know I joked earlier this offseason about Sam Howell stepping into the Patrick Mahomes role in the Eric Bieniemy and no one caring. But I want Jacoby Brissett to step into the Patrick Mahomes role here. I would rank him as a low quarterback 2.
He's currently on Underdog going behind Desmond Ridder, which seems appalling to me.
Oh, I don't know about that.
He's also going behind Brock Purdy, which I don't. Is the guy even going to play?
What?
Yeah.
I guess I'm higher on Sam Howell than the consensus.
Or would you take Sam Howell or Kenny Pickett?
Oh God, that's a horrible choice.
I think you take Sam Howell. I mean, I've been leading the Sam Howell hating charge. I don't know how in good conscience you take Kenny Pickett over Sam Howell.
Here's the thing, though. Wait. You said I'm leading the charge?
No. I said I have been.
Oh, okay. So with Kenny Pickett, you're getting 17 starts.
Come on,
no
man.
No matter what.
You know how many games there are, and I'm never going to get used to that.
I know. It's not. I'm still my old
man.
Make
it an odd number. This is America. It's an even number of games.
Even numbers. This is what the founders intended.
Please God, don't make it an even number and go to 18. Make the season even longer.
And you know what's an even number, Pat? 22.
I'm declaring 17 an even number.
Yeah, I actually might move to Canada if it becomes 20.
Sorry to interrupt
you. So Kenny Pickett gets 17 starts because it doesn't matter how poorly he plays. Because he's a Pittsburgh kid and he's tough and he's gonna get in there and he's gonna do his thing, and so it doesn't matter. So he's gonna get 17 starts. But Sam Howell, I'm telling you, he's gonna get yanked by Ron Rivera. The second he throws a dumb looking interception, Rivera's going to be like, look, man, I don't want to get fired tomorrow. Brissett, you're in.
And then he will still get fired tomorrow anyway.
Yes.
But then he'll have wrecked his confidence. I mentioned Brock Purdy, which brings us to our final question. NBC Sports' Matt Mayoko, a friend of the show, has been on the show. We'll probably try to have on the show again this summer. Believes that Sam Darnold, quote, might be the most talented thrower in 49ers history the franchise of Joe Montana and Steve. I'm not saying this is, I'm not trying to mock Mayoko. It kind of does speak to Sam Darnold. Always looks like this when there's no one else around, when he's in shorts and t-shirts, when it's in a clean pocket. But he's never had anywhere even approaching Kyle Shanahan. We've talked about several times on this show that he didn't sign up the 49ers to be the number 3 quarterback. We know that's just straight up not happening because he could have easily been the number 2 for almost any team in the league. He went to San Francisco with some kind of assurance he's going to either get the starting opportunity or be the number 2. Like, is this kind of – it's weird the way things work in the NFL. Like, I feel like there's always like a process by which franchises kind of enlist the media to get the fan base used to ideas. And I just feel like the 49ers are into overdrive trying to get people used to the idea that Sam Darnold is starting for this team. And what do you think's going on with this?
Yes, we're going to need you fans to wrap your heads around the idea of Sam Darnold as our franchise quarterback. Brock Purdy is kind of up in the air to open the season. Kyle Shanahan has already said Trey Lance and Sam Darnold will, quote, split first team snaps. Okay.
Well, at the same time, also saying he has never heard of Trey Lance.
So. That is something the media. I don't know where the media is on that.
Reporting that. Well, Kyle Shanahan continues to say he's under oath now. He said he doesn't know who Trey Lance is.
He has, quote, never seen him nor interacted with him. It's quite the scandal, considering he got 2 starts last year. But I mean, Darnold, I do want to mention, and we mentioned this in the blurb here. Only 5 quarterbacks had a higher EPA per play than Darnold from week 12 to week 18 last season when he was Carolina starter.
Hopefully you can keep your train of thought. It was in an offense that had one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL, and he will have in San Francisco.
That's right. He posted a career high 8.2 adjusted yards per attempt. That's like a huge increase over his. I think his career is like 6.6. Okay, like there are signs that point to Sam Darnold being not so bad if he's in a system where he can be a game manager. And what does that sound like? What does that sound? That sounds like Jimmy Garoppolo, right? That sounds like Brock Purdy. It sounds like for a while, who was Garoppolo's backup who did okay? Anyway,
TJ Beathard, Nick Mullins,
those guys, right? So I'm not saying anyone can succeed in this offense, but a lot of guys can. And I honestly would not be shocked if Darnold by August is the favorite to start the season while Purdy gets right. And I wouldn't be surprised if he performs in this offense in a way that makes it nearly impossible to just insert Brock Purdy back into the starter's role.
I mean, this offense turned the literal final pick of the draft into an NFC Championship game starting quarterback. So it is just weird of Sam Darnold because we've seen him crack, in the literal sense, crack under the pressure so many times. He just cannot handle NFL pressure. But he did have his best season last year under horrible circumstances, like truly adverse circumstances. He took like a pretty unexpected step forward, not to overstate the degree of this. Like you still like dig into his box scores. You're like, this is a step forward. Like this is
but
the advanced stats were more intriguing than the real stats.
Right. It was low volume. I know what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, and as far as protection goes, so Carolina actually was 9th in pass blocking efficiency. According to Pro Football Focus, the Niners last year were 5th in that category. So I mean, he's going to be behind a line that can keep him clean and keep him from seeing ghosts or whatever his issue was in New York.
You compared him to Jimmy G. He has a far larger arm than Jimmy G.
Oh yeah,
probably not nearly as accurate. I don't know. It's a fascinating situation. My gut feel is that Sam Darnold is going to be the week 1 quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
I'm getting there. Yeah.
You're just sensing like an information campaign in progress with the 49ers, like an education campaign for the public.
It's
pretty soon, like, I don't know why this World War II era fighter bomber just dropped leaflets all over the Bay Area saying Sam Darnold should be the starter, but okay.
All right. I guess we'll go with it. It is listen, it is actually a psyop. Like this time it's real.
It is real. I know I'm saying there's going to be like information leaflets dropped all over the Bay Area with like the stats you were just citing. At 8.2 What was the yards over expected stat?
Adjusted yards per attempt.
I don't know why the U.S. government is spending money dropping these leaflets.
Right.
But,
There's got to be better use for our tax dollars, folks.
There is. But Kyle Shanahan isn't sure what they are. We're getting near the end of the show. We've been meaning to talk about your unexpected fantasy points article for several weeks. I'm sorry it's so near the end of the show here, Denny, but pretty interesting concept that you had from a few weeks ago. We kind of got lost in the draft shuffle and weren't able to talk about it, but just basically you explain that. You can explain it much better than me. Take us through your unexpected points article.
Right. So I went through expected points added data from last season. And yeah, I mean, that involves kind of cherry picking some things, but you do what you got to do to create content in the off season. But there were some interesting takeaways, including how good the Dolphins were last year. I guess I hadn't really come to grips.
Like, we knew they were efficient, but basically, did we get like the full Shanahan or something?
Yeah, we did. And it was the full Shanahan without all the unnecessary first down rushing attempts. So it's like Shanahan, but better in many ways. And I know that maybe like sounds sacrilegious to folks since it's like his system, but Mike McDaniel definitely knows what he's doing. I mean, there's an argument to be made here that the Dolphins would have led the entire NFL in EPA per play if Tua had not suffered multiple concussions last year. Like, anytime he was in there and healthy, they were lapping the field in EPA. And, because they were doing a lot with those over the middle passes to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They weren't protecting Tua nearly as well as they should have or could have. But even so, they were excellent, and their running game was efficient as well, even though they didn't rush out all that much. I said on Twitter, I was wrong. I was wrong about Tua in that he was really good. Like, there's no two ways about it. He was actually really solid on deep balls, despite. And I'm sorry, Dolphins fans. Listen, I was a Dolphins fan. I'm with you in spirit, sort of. But Tua's deep ball is ugly as hell, man. It's just ugly. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know why you can't. I don't know why Miami fans can't see it. It's ugly. It's a duck, and it comes down in weird places. And Tyreek Hill just happens to be the greatest receiver in the game. So there,
Well, it's the only deep ball in the league where the fan base gets angry when the team account tweets highlights of it, and they're trying to make him look bad. Like, it's just how it looks. It's this deep ball. And just someone named Johnny G, 22-year-old intern, is just weeping because everyone's yelling at him. I thought I was doing a good thing.
Look,
it was not.
It's not Johnny G's fault that that Tua looks like he's never thrown left-handed.
I know, it's true. Yeah, this is a bit. He's throwing left-handed. Where's the right-handed highlight? It's pretty good for his left hand, but
it's not Johnny's fault. Yeah, rehire Johnny.
Yeah, please bring him back. Where were some other unexpected points, Denny?
So the Lions, which they really devastated the analytics community with their first round pick.
They've been on a campaign of destruction of goodwill, basically.
Yeah. So that was tough. That was tough to swallow. But the Detroit's offense led the entire NFL in EPA per play from week 9 to 18. I mean, and this is with Jared Goff at the helm. All right. So they had one of the league's worst rushing attacks, especially in the second half of the season. But Goff led all quarterbacks in adjusted EPA per drop back in the season's second half. All quarterbacks, folks, including, everybody: Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, the rest. Okay, I'm not leaving out anybody. Okay, completion. If you combine completion rate over expected with EPA, which is like a more holistic measure of a quarterback's efficiency, Goff ranked third behind only Burrow and Mahomes. Like, I think this is a fantasy friendly system. And I think we should kind of adjust accordingly to like take shots on peripheral guys, maybe get aggressive on Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe get aggressive on the running backs. I
was going to say a situation where you may not have liked the real life process for using the number 12 overall pick on a change of pace running back, but you should maybe really like it in fantasy.
I agree. Also, I think that Jared Goff, barring some sort of philosophical change, I think Jared Goff could profile as an every week starter in 12-team leagues.
I thought you were going to say, for some reason, I thought you were going to say, even though this is not something we ever talk about, that you were going to do an MVP ticket on Jared Goff. I think that's how the betting people say it.
I would not do that.
You should. I think I'm thinking about it now.
I'm begging you not to do that.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. No chance. Yeah. No chance of that. But
yeah, and then some other takeaways from the piece. You can find it on the site, and maybe I'll tweet it out for the 35th time. Jacoby Brissett, really, really shockingly good. So the Cleveland Browns offense last year ranked 25th in EPA, with Deshaun Watson dropping back over the season's final month and a half. Before that, they ranked 6th. Okay, they ranked 6th in EPA per dropback. Like, they were good, and then Jacoby Brissett got benched for the guaranteed money man, and it all went south. Okay, so that's something. I think both a takeaway for Brissett and Watson. And then I wrote a little bit about how there's reason to believe that Brissett is the best Washington quarterback in recent memory. I know.
Can you say down bad?
Down unfathomably bad. This is what the Commanders are. So yeah, I think that there are some things that we can take away from last year's EPA data to say, oh, like, this guy, when he was on the field, he was efficient. And really, efficiency is such a key in finding ADP cheat codes, right? Like finding guys who are just not being valued the way that they should be. So that's kind of the premise that I approached the article with.
Really, really good stuff. Check it out. Just Google Denny Carter unexpected points. You should be able to find it. And you've maybe written about this in the past, so make sure it's the 2023 version.
Yes.
I realize what we should have riffed about at the beginning, by the way.
Yeah.
If ever given the chance, would you too shove the owner of the Phoenix Suns? Did you follow the Jokic controversy? Where did you hear the Phoenix Suns owner may or may not have flopped and got Nikola Jokic ejected from a playoff game?
I think you have to respect that kind of commitment.
You do.
I mean, he was actually following his players' lead, since all NBA players flop all the time.
Oh, come on, man. All right. Yeah. They're still out of control flopping. And
if you're
still out of control charge taking, I can't see any more charges, man.
If you're not flopping, you're not trying.
That's true. And if you're not just going and mysteriously standing for no reason in front of someone running full speed and then getting knocked over, you're not trying.
I mean, LeBron James, the strongest man alive by many measures, goes flying when a 6'1", 180-pound point guard touches it. Okay, he just goes flying through the air magically. It's incredible.
It is incredible. The NBA playoffs are incredible, even though they're not on NBC. So don't watch them.
I would never.
We hope you watch the Kentucky Derby. Mage, hell of a horse. Am I right, folks?
One thing I noticed about Mage is that it is a horse.
It is a horse. He's a horsey. He is a horsey who runs very, very fast.
Dang, that is one horse. That's a horse.
That's a horse, all right. And that's a podcast. This podcast with Denny Carter and Patrick Daugherty is over. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back later this week with Kyle Dvorak to break down the latest NFL news and other stuff.
Yes.